All right, I just wanted to talk a little bit about Microsoft's newest editions of SQL Server. You have the ability to use what they're calling machine learning services, but specifically I wanted to just talk about using R for analytics in database with SQL Server. So I'm actually not a DBA, so I'm kind of backing into SQL from statistics and analytics world. And a few of you may have seen me around here, but first time I've talked here. So if you want to reach out to me, you can find me on Twitter, email me, or LinkedIn. And first off, I just wanted to kind of go over the kind of the current state of things, or I'm saying old analytics paradigm, but what I really mean is what I do at work every day. So what I end up doing a lot of the times is I have a process within SQL Server where I will be pulling data that the DBAs have been nice enough to share with me and go in and typically doing quite a few joins and aggregating data so that I can pull that within R and actually perform the analytics within R. And then as you can see on the slide, those analytics in R are all in memory. So we're not taking advantage of the servers. And then a lot of the times I'll also end up whatever kind of statistical transformation or whatever you do to the data within R, a lot of the times we'll end up pushing that back to SQL Server. So what you end up with a lot of the times are one script in T-SQL and then another script that's doing more pure analytics on that same data within R. So we kind of have this trade-off where we're going back and forth between R and SQL. Typically, I just have an ODBC connection that's pushing and pulling between the two. But honestly, typically I find that the read times from SQL Server are not bad, but anytime you start writing to SQL Server, it seems to take a while. So not really ideal, especially when I only just want to get a plot from some data that's stored in SQL Server. Sure. Yeah, that's R on the right. So basically what's happening here is, it's probably pretty difficult to see, but in this block of code right here, it's basically querying and pulling all of this data that I just basically created a log file here with quite a few joins, and then within R, I'm going in and actually pulling that same data that I just aggregated in SQL. And then typically, it's just because I want to look at the data and see distributions or compare different groups or something like that. So that's kind of, to me, that's kind of a convoluted way of doing things, especially whenever Microsoft and SQL Server and the R team have come up with a way where you can actually do it in database, and we just say, hey, execute this stored procedure. I want you to use the R programming language or Python if that's your thing. And then you have your script below that and actually run it all in one spot. And I think probably from a DBA perspective, probably the performance gains are what most people would think about. Kind of just benchmarking what I've seen people posting online, orders of magnitude faster if you're running models in R that you want to run on the server through SQL. And of course you have the parallel processing that you can actually run models in parallel within SQL Server. And then you can obviously do some tuning on those queries and your stored procedures that get wrapped up with those R scripts. So they get saved as stored procedures. So I haven't done any benchmarks or anything on this, so I mean your mileage may vary on that, but it's definitely going to be a significant performance increase if you're doing it through the server. So there's that, and there's also just the fact that you're getting to use kind of the more fine-tuned analytics within R. So if you want to do any kind of fine-tuned data manipulation, or you want to clean up data, or you kind of want to get down to a finer detail, doing any kind of statistical transformations, or a lot of times I just want to plot a histogram. And so that's you're kind of getting the best of both worlds there with SQL's kind of the powerhouse, pulling in the data and then being able to kind of go in at a finer level in R. So those are kind of the big benefits. For me, what I end up doing is I end up with a lot of the same files, same types of files where I'm doing similar things in SQL and R at the same time, and I end up with files with the exact same name, one with a .r extension and one with a .SQL extension. So to me, this is kind of just a way of kind of limiting your cognitive overload of having to jump back and forth between different scripts and pushing and pulling data between different sources. So with this method of doing things, you actually have the ability to call the R scripts from a stored procedure. So this is all wrapped up in a stored procedure, and you can do all of your reads and writes from within the server. So this is kind of what you would typically see here, where someone's actually going through and they're actually creating a model that can be replicated and then actually storing the output of that model in SQL Server tables. So pretty handy, especially if you want to do any kind of scripting on your models and change parameters on the fly. Haven't personally used it, but I could see how it would be really, really nice to have. So that's kind of the overview of using machine learning services in SQL. As far as version support, the initial release with what was actually called R services, and it was in Microsoft. It was in SQL Server 2016, and it's also available in SQL Server 17. And it kind of underwent a name change. It's now machine learning services as opposed to R services because Python has been added. So I don't use Python, but as far as I can tell, if you do use Python, the support with Python is very similar to R. So if you do any kind of modeling in Python, it looks like you're in good shape there as well. So. Mm-hmm. So was that an example of what you would have done beforehand? Yeah, that's what I'm doing today. Okay. So in the new way that SQL Server has, how would you mix those together? Would you have that SQL code in a stored procedure and then have that stored procedure also call the R script afterwards? No, so probably what I would actually do is you would have your SQL code within your T-SQL script above this execute statement here. Do whatever kind of pre-processing you need on the data within SQL. Take advantage of that processing power within SQL or efficiencies of SQL, and then run your executed run or create a stored procedure that you can call at any time, and then you can parameterize that where you can run through and change. You can actually create parameters within the R code. So your R code here, so this script on the right, it's going in and just doing some cleaning on the data within R, but doing it in memory. That would actually go here where I've got it commented out. You would actually just place all the code from that script, and you just need to let SQL Server know that that is R language or it's Python language, and then you can actually just run that as a stored procedure. I didn't catch all of that. Running a model on partial. Mm-hmm. Okay. I'm not sure about the changes in the data, but as far as partitioning out your data, that's one of the use cases I've seen for this. Is a lot of people will split their data, have like a validation and a testing subsets of their data, and that's something you can actually do within SQL. So you kind of partition your data out and then say, I want to run that stored procedure that has the exact same model on those two splits of the data. I don't know if that really answers the question, but you can do holdouts where if you say only 5% of my data has changed and for some reason you only want to look at that 5% of the data, you could run a SQL query on your log file or see what your delta rows are and then pull those out and then run your stored procedure on that subset. Any other questions I can answer?
So basically, our capability came in 2016, and they've added on Python in 2017 to do something similar.
Yes. Yeah, and as far as I can tell, I have to admit, I haven't actually used this yet. I'm kind of itching to try it out, but as far as I can tell, the Python support looks very similar. I kind of glanced through the packages for both R and Python, and most of the packages anyone would want to use are included and can be called directly as long as they're installed on, I don't know if they get installed on the SQL Server instance. I don't really know that part of it, but as long as you write a script that installs them, you can use their full functionality on that. So.